mental health and resiliency. We'll talk a little bit first about CMHA. We are over 100 years old, not me personally, of course. We're a national charity that helps maintain and improve mental health for all Canadians. We are a leader and champion for mental health, and we help people access community resources they need to build resilience and support recovery from mental illness. So we're out there doing things like this, but during COVID, we have been taking to the internet. We're doing webinars. So thank you for joining us today. We have 18 locations in the province. Our major offices are in Fredericton, Moncton, and St. John. And we have 13 community program coordinators sprinkled throughout the province, of which I am one, and so is Denise, as you see in the square. We do these presentations, awareness, education out in the communities. And we have a provincial peer support program where folks with mental illness, recovery from mental illness, who have lived experience, take some training, and then go out into the communities to support others who are in recovery from mental illness. And in Charlotte County, we're very fortunate to have a program called Working Stronger Together. So this is a program where people with any type of disability can seek help and support to help them find employment and even secondary education. So they get great support from this organization. So that was a little bit about us. And now on to our mental health and resiliency. You can see here from this slide that mental health has become more and more part of our mainframe. Years ago, we didn't talk about mental health. It was only your physical health. If you broke your leg, you go to the doctor. If you have a cold or a flu, you take some medication. But we didn't really talk much about mental health. But of course, now we're talking more and more about it, which is good. That's a positive thing. We want that awareness out there. And as you can see from the numbers, it affects us. Mental health affects us. It affects our economy. It affects our work. It affects our day-to-day lives. Everyone has mental health. 5 in 5 of us have mental health. However, 1 in 5 of us will experience a mental health problem each year. And 1 in 3 can experience a mental health problem in their lifetime. So those are the stats. So we do need to be aware. And that's part of our role with CMHA, is bringing that awareness. So as you can see at the bottom of the slide, there's 5 little blue people. 5 of us have mental health, and we can benefit from resiliency. But first, before we talk about resiliency, we're going to talk about what is mental health and what is mental illness. Mental health, how we cope with our day-to-day, our well-being, how we're doing mentally. My physical health, if I get up one morning and stuffy, runny nose, bit of a cough, sore throat, that's my physical health being affected by a cold. My mental health, I'm going to have good days and bad days as well, but I'm going to get through those. A little cold, maybe an event or a situation or something that's happened in my life has brought on some challenges or bad days, but I spring past those eventually and move on with the day-to-day, and my mental health is relatively intact and doing okay. Mental illness is when there's a biochemical change in my brain or your brain that affects how I think, feel, and behave. Those are the symptoms of a mental illness, how I think, behave, and feel. If I have an illness in my pancreas, talking about diabetes, of course, then my insulin doesn't produce properly. That's an illness of my pancreas. If I am struggling with depression, if I'm struggling with anxiety, and I mean long-term, it's not like having a bad day and not able to get out of bed that day, or an event has happened so you're feeling low for a season of time. This is really struggling over time, probably like 6 months. So mental illness is a biochemical change in the brain and the illness of the brain. So hopefully that helps. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot those out to Denise in the Q&A. So we do have influences of our mental health, our resilience, which we will get into a bit later, our life balance. Am I all work and no play? Am I all play and no work? though each one can be challenging. We need to have a good life balance. Awareness, what is mental health? What affects our mental health? Am I struggling? Am I doing okay? Self-compassion and self-care. We're great to tell people what they should do to help themselves. Do this for yourself, do that for yourself. But what about when we point at ourselves? Oh, wait a minute. How do I take care of me? So that's really important as well. And it influences our mental health. Positive attitude. 73% of us Canadians are negative thinkers. How do we flip that? How do we change that so that we are positive thinkers? The glass is half full, not half empty. Mindful. Are we people who are able to quiet our minds? Are we able to chill, so to speak? Self-esteem. Do I like me even with all my flaws? Do I enjoy me even with all my flaws, my good and my bad? Physical health. Am I taking care of my physical health? Am I exercising? Am I making wise food choices? Am I getting a good night's sleep? And coping strategies. Am I using a bottle of wine to cope? Or am I using medication to cope? Or am I, making poor choices to cope? Those things will all influence our mental health. I'll have a little drink of water. So factors that increase or influence our risk of developing a mental illness. So we know what affects our mental health. Now, what puts us at a risk of a mental illness? Chemical imbalance could be an illness. Parkinson's obviously would affect your risk of a mental illness. Cancers, different illnesses like that, could be puberty, could be pregnancy, any of those kinds of things, any type of chemical imbalance. Individual attributes and behavior. How do you handle life? Are you someone who the glass is half full or half empty? Are you someone who takes care of yourself? Are you, those types of things. Substance use or misuse, goes without saying. Social and economic circumstances, poverty, loneliness, conflict, those kinds of things. Traumatic life events can definitely affect your possibility of a mental illness. Environmental factors. What were you subject to in utero? Was there a toxic environment when you were in utero? Was there substance abuse? Was there something in the environment that your mom was ingesting? And I don't mean drugs or alcohol necessarily, but even if they're living in a city or area where there's some toxic things in the environment, that certainly can affect you down the road as well. Environmental factors, same idea, living in conflict. If there's where you work, if that's a challenge as well, day after day after day, that toxic environment, that can affect you. Hereditary. Did grandma or grandpa or someone in your family tree suffer from depression or anxiety or bipolar, any of those? That can be passed down through generations, and other illnesses. So these are things that can influence or bring you to a higher risk of developing a mental illness. I love this picture. It's the mental health continuum. It really helps us to get a full understanding of how we can have mental health and mental illness and how they can interact and how we can move around this continuum. So if you look at the vertical arrow in the front and center, high mental health, and at the bottom it says low mental health. We can be anywhere on this arrow. Might be doing well, things might be going along great, but a couple of events pop in and my mental health gets a little lower. Doesn't mean I have a mental illness, it just means that my mental health is taking a little bit of a hit. And then we have the horizontally high symptoms of mental illness, over to the other side, low symptoms of mental illness. So I can be someone with a mental illness and have high symptoms, or I can have low symptoms. Just because I have a mental illness doesn't mean that I'm always living in that state of turmoil with high symptoms. I can be anywhere on that arrow. So how do these intersect? If you look in the top right corner where it says flourishing, so I have high mental health, I have low or no symptoms of a mental illness, no mental illness at all. And I'm doing okay. Yes, life throws you wrenches here and there, but I'm doing okay. I'm flourishing along. Things are going well. Yes, those wrenches come in, but because of my, I don't know, supports, coping, self-care, self-compassion, those things, I'm flourishing. I'm doing okay. I could end up eventually, depending on life events, in languishing. If you look below at the bottom right corner, languishing. So let's say, yes, I've been doing fine in flourishing, but then maybe I lose my job, I lose a loved one, we start family conflict is happening, really struggling in my life. Over time, if I'm struggling for a long time with unemployment, with isolation, with family conflict, with maybe a chronic illness, any of those things, you know, the list is long, and I'm there long enough, I can develop a mental illness, which would move me over to the lower left, languishing and symptoms of mental illness. So I've been flourishing, I move into languishing because of the life events that have taken place, and I haven't been able to take care of myself. Haven't been able to get out of challenging situations, haven't been able to find employment, my illness doesn't go away, you know, chronic illness, physical illness, something like that. These of course are just examples. Then I can be in that lower left corner, languishing with symptoms of mental illness. I have now developed a mental illness as a result of the events and things that have taken place in my life. Now, of course, it doesn't have to be that way. If I'm someone who's been flourishing and then I witnessed a horrific event, or I was in a car accident, or I've had a crime committed against me, some tragic event, I could immediately move over to the left section, lower left, with post-traumatic stress disorder. So it doesn't mean that I have to have lingered long in a state of trial and challenges before I move over, which can be before I move over, but it could be an event that moves me there rather quickly. So we can move anywhere on this continuum. However, so being in languishing and symptoms of mental illness, I now have maybe depression, anxiety, thoughts of suicide, just not wanting to cope with life anymore. But with support, with connections, decided to make some choices to improve, to make some changes, getting those connections, getting the resources I need, I can move into flourishing and still have symptoms of mental illness, but I can flourish. Yes, I might have battled with depression or anxiety, but I can flourish because I've put all these things in place to get the help that I need, to make changes if I was in an environment that wasn't good for me, leaving that environment, whatever those things are. So I can definitely be someone who flourishes with symptoms of mental illness. So our mental health and our mental illness does connect. We need to be, make sure we're doing self-care and self-compassion. So we also have, CMHA has a community resource base. What I want you to focus on is this orange, the person in the middle. That's the key. That person has some needs. They need the things in the blue. I can't go to, I'm not going to want to go to a support group or a counselor or something if I don't have a house to live in, if I don't have food in my belly, if I don't have shelter. If I don't have any type of income, if I don't have work, or if you think of purpose, so work or purpose could be interchangeable here, or I don't have any education as to what is my illness, what am I struggling with, what's going on. So don't necessarily think of education as vocationally, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a secretary, whatever those things are. Think about it as in understanding my situation, my illness. So someone who, in the orange, that person-centered care is what we want to look at. They need warm house, warm place to live. They need money coming in so that they're not afraid of where the next meal is coming from. They need purpose, be it volunteering, a reason to get out of bed in the morning, and they need to have awareness of what's happening, what their illness is. So think about that person needing those basics first, and then they can move to those self-help consumer organizations. Maybe it's a book they read or some articles, or looking at things on the web, connecting with family and friends, services and groups, join a support group possibly, and of course the counselor with mental health services. So we need resources. We need those basics in the blue, but we do need resources. So finding and accessing help in our communities. Hopefully we have family and friends. Sometimes family can be the reason people are struggling with mental illness. So we don't always say, oh yeah, connect with your family. Maybe that's the reason you are struggling. So friends are important. We need connections in the community. We're not meant to live alone. Yes, I can live alone in my own apartment or home kind of thing, but I need people. I need connections. Support lines. In New Brunswick, we have the support line called CHIMO, where you can access that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if it's in the middle of the night, you don't really want to bother anybody, but you know you need support, call the CHIMO health line. And for kids, it's called the Kids Help Phone, and they can email or text or call. So those things are available for us in New Brunswick. Your family doctor, talk to your family doctor about what's going on. Maybe if you're someone who's been struggling with symptoms of depression, possibly related to a physical illness, maybe it's thyroid. So check those things out with your family doctor. Emergency mental health services are available to us. Psychotherapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, community support services. Is it a support group? Is it a program? Is it a webinar? Like today, you're watching a webinar. What are those support services in their community that you can reach out to access that help? Employee assistance programs with work. If you have that in your organization, access that. It's there just for you. It's wonderful. Crisis services, if those things are needed, you might need to call 911. And holistic practices. Essential oils, meditation, exercising, going out in nature, those kinds of things, taking care of yourself. So it's so important for us to reach out and get these resources that we need, person-centered. Think about that orange square. If I'm not someone who believes in essential oils, for example, then why would I go in that direction? If it's something that I'd like to try, then go in that direction. If it's my family that's part of the reason I'm struggling with mental illness, well, that's not a direction I'm going to go in. It has to be the person-centered, what they need. So we need well-being. And what is well-being? As we talk about mental health, you think about well-being. It's that state of being comfortable, content, healthy, high life satisfaction. And when I read that, I think, I wonder how many people could say they have high life satisfaction. So our well-being means being content in our circumstances so that we are satisfied. Sense of meaning and purpose in life. We all need a reason to get out of bed. And if we don't have a reason, we need to get out there and find a reason. Ability to manage stress and challenging life experiences. We need to be able to cope. And a general feeling of being well. So you're not dealing with all the pressures, they're not weighty, having you down. Your general feeling of being well. So as you remember, I showed you this one. So this is what we as support people need to think about. We need that person-centered care. What are those basic needs that someone needs first before they can move on to the self-help, the community support groups, those kinds of things. And then as we move here, you are the person who is in control of your own life. So what are the things that you need? You need hope, confidence, well-being, resilience. You need that understanding of mental health and what it is and what you need. A positive sense of self. You're worth it. You're important. You're valuable. Purpose and meaning, as I mentioned, a reason to get out of bed. If you don't have it, get out there and find it. Inclusion and belonging. Staying home, hidden in our houses, isolating, doesn't give us inclusion and belonging. There's some steps that have to be taken. But You're in control of your own life. So it's in your time, in your way, the things that you need. So these two little pictures with the circles and the orange are just a depiction of how do I get to ground zero, in a sense. How do people in the community help me? What are the things I need? But also thinking that it's got to be person-centered. And then these are the things that you yourself can work towards in your time and in your way. We have 8 dimensions of well-being. So picture this little, well, not picture it, you see the wheel with all the different pieces of pie. How full of your pieces of pie? I think about a blueberry pie, for example. It's one of my favorites. So if I am not taking care of myself physically, that's going to be like a half-eaten piece of blueberry pie. It's not going to be full. It's not going to be that delicious-looking piece of pie. If I'm not out there making sure that I'm walking or swimming or gardening or getting my body moving, then that piece of pie is going to be pretty shrimpy. If I am, let's think about emotional. If I'm not aware of my emotions, not taking care of my emotions, not expressing what I need and what I want, then that's going to be a pretty shrimpy piece of pie too. And that won't make a nice full rounded pie. You want a full rounded pie. Does everybody have a full rounded pie? Truly, I don't know anybody that does. Of course, we're going to have areas that we're stronger in and areas that we're weaker in. But the idea is to get to know these dimensions and what is it that you're missing so that you can fill up that piece of pie a little more. How do we build that? How do we build our pie? How do we build our mental wellness? If we're not good at managing stress, let's find out how to do that. CMHA has programs, there's different community organizations. How do you find ways to manage your stress? Exercise regularly, healthy diet. And as you go down, enough sleep, down towards the bottom, you'll see get enough sleep. I always say that these are 3 pillars that our mental health and physical health kind of stand on. We need to exercise, we need to make healthy food choices, and we need to get enough sleep. And then, of course, the other things that stem from that is improving our self-esteem. If I'm not someone who accepts myself for my weaknesses and my good points, then maybe there's some work I need to do. Adapt to changes. Life is change. Things are going to happen. We can't be afraid of change. Not necessarily that we're going to walk through it easily, but we need to be able to adapt. Deal with emotions. If we're not someone who deals with our emotions, if we're someone who flies off the handle easily, there's a reason for that. Where does that come from? How come? Have a look at those emotions. See where these things come from. And many times we're not able to figure these things out by ourselves. We need support. We need help. We need to talk to that EAP counselor or mental health in the community, or read a book on emotions. Something to do to help us. Awareness. Awareness is such a big deal. It makes big changes for us. If we don't know, we don't know. But when we do know, we can make those changes. Find inner peace. As you work through all of these things, that peace is going to come. Relaxation. All work and no play, right? Build positive relationships. If we're surrounding ourselves with people that are negative, toxic, challenging, gossipy, any of those kinds of things, we need to remove ourselves slowly and gently from those situations and build positive relationships. Put those boundaries up. No, I'm not going to talk about this. I don't want to talk about Susie, for example, anymore. Hey, what about going for a walk at lunchtime? You know, something like that. Develop a strong support network. And that doesn't have to be friends and family. That can be people in your community, maybe a good connection with your doctor, good connection with a counselor, support group, those kinds of things. And of course, friends and family, if that can be part of it. Excuse me, but developing a strong support network, that can even be online. It doesn't have to be a place that you go to. As you look through the internet, there's all kinds of support groups. So finding that one that you can connect with is important. Give and receive compliments. Oh, this old thing? Thank you. Instead of saying this old thing, Say thank you. Walk away. Give and receive compliments. Don't be afraid to tell people what you like about them. And those things will come back to you. Get involved in your community. That's that making connections kind of thing. That's purpose and acceptance and belonging. Get involved out there. And etc. Whatever those etc. things are for you to build your mental wellness. But of course, life does throw us some wrenches. So for us to understand our stressors can be good and they can be bad. Of course, we need some type of stress in our life. If I didn't have some stressors, I might not prepare for things as well. I wouldn't be as motivated. So some stress can be good. It doesn't hurt us at all. It motivates us, it inspires us. But poor mental health can come if the pressures are greater than the resources we have to cope with those. Pressures could be family or relationship issues, financial worries, chronic illness, unexpected outcomes, chronic stress like workload obligations, people who are caregivers and working in a job and also caregiving. There's a lot of stress there. Loss, mental illness. But it also could be those wonderful things like planning a wedding or building a house or going to have a baby. Those things are fabulous life events, but still cause stress. So we need self-care and compassion so that we ensure we're taking care of ourselves, that our resources are enough to deal with everyday pressures. We don't want to be in the situation where we end up with poor mental health because we're overwhelmed by the pressures of life. So when stressors arrive, what are the alarm bells? How do you know the stress is too much? You have a racing heart, your breathing changes and is more rapid, your digestion changes, pupils dilate, muscles tense, probably a furrowed brow. Things change in your body. Your oxygen is sent to your muscles. That's the rapid breathing. Different chemicals are released to your brain so that you're on high alert. Little story, I have two sisters. Years ago, they're walking down what we call the tracks. One's in flip-flops, one's in sneakers. They come across a bear, right? You're in the woods. We call it the tracks. It used to be an old railroad track. And this bear comes out. Well, the sister with flip-flops is gone. She is moving. And my sister with sneakers is just standing there picking dirt out of her teeth. Right? Just this whole, we all handle stress differently. So one was frozen and the other one was gone. Both of them still have those things that happen in their bodies. That muscle tension, that cortisol release so that she's gone, the adrenaline is pumping, she's flying away, running away, leaving her sister in the dust, yeah, in her flip-flops, no less. So those things all took place, those reactions in her physical body took place. Well, once they're safe, once the bear saunters off into the woods, he's not concerned with them at all, their body can come back to normal. Their breathing comes back to normal, the heart rate gets back to normal, their digestion comes back to normal. Everything is able to get back to that place of normalcy. Those are the alarm bells that I talked about, but we want to be able to come back to that place of normalcy, to regulate kind of thing in our body system. If we have too much of that, if our body is not able, because of stressors, bear or chronic stress or worry because of finances, family conflict, whatever those things might be, that's happening all the time in our bodies. So that can certainly take a toll on us. That's when we're more susceptible to illness. That's when we're struggling with sleep at night. Those are all those kinds of things. So we need to be aware of those alarm bells and use the resources and things we can to bring our bodies back to a normal state. So we need to know about resilience. If we know about mental health, mental illness, we know about our well-being and how important these things are, our 8 areas of wellness. Let's talk about resilience now. So resilience relates to how we adapt in the face of stress, adversity, trauma, or tragedy. To be resilient, we need to cope effectively within the time frame that the situation allows and requires. Example, if there is a loss of a loved one, I'm not going to bounce back from that the next day. That's going to take me some time. You have the stages of grief. I'm going to need to go through each of those stages. So that's why we talk about time frame that the situation allows or requires. Yes, we need to be resilient. We need to take care of ourselves, but we also need to recognize that we're going to go through some phases of grief, for example. So to be resilient is coping effectively within the time frame. So if I am in grief, again, I'm just using this as an example, then what do I need to know about grief? I need to be more aware. I need to understand those phases so that I can see when I'm in there and how I'm progressing. That would be the resilience piece, right? To be aware, to understand, oh, I'm having these bad dreams or nightmares. This is the phase I'm in. Or I'm dreaming about my loved one, my last loved one. That's the phase of grief that we're in that people go through, and that's okay, right? So that time frame. Again, this is just an example. So resilience, how we adapt. How do we build resilience? If I know I'm not being resilient now that I've come to this session this morning on a Sunday morning, it's like, oh, what can I do to build my resilience? I know that I'm languishing. How do I work on that? So making connections. We're not meant to hang out on this earth alone. Avoid seeing crisis as insurmountable problems. We can get through life. We can, you listen to some very tragic stories and how people have been able to survive and thrive. We can avoid seeing crisis as insurmountable. Accept that change is part of living. To use the example of death, it doesn't mean it's easy, does not mean it's easy, but it is part of living that death is involved. Again, just an example. Moving towards your goals. If it's, my goal is I need to learn more about this situation I'm in. My goal is to, in a year, be in this. I need to know more about my emotions. I need to know more about the challenges that I've been facing. I need to take little baby steps to move me towards a better mental health. Excuse me. So move towards your goals. Take decisive actions. I could lay in bed a long time, right? So it's making those decisions, making those decisive actions to take care of me, to do what I need, to learn about things that I need to learn about. Or recognizing that I have been very challenging for other people. So now I need to find out why and make some changes in that way. Those kinds of things. Share my concerns and stressful feelings. There is no textbook out there that says you should stuff and bury your feelings. Research has proven time and time and time again that we need to share our concerns and stressful feelings. Appropriately, of course, not with everybody you run into, but those trusted people that can support you and care for you. Look for opportunities for self-discovery. We kind of forget about ourselves sometimes. We go along ensuring that other people's needs are met, or maybe we're in angry mode and just not happy with life. How do we get self-discovery? How do we stop, take a deep breath, learn more about ourselves? Self-discovery can be fantastic, and part of that move towards resiliency and well-being. What do I like? What do I not like? What do I really want to do? You get lost thinking about everybody else wants and needs that you forget about your own. What is it that I enjoy? Do I enjoy painting? Do I enjoy building a birdhouse? What are the things that I enjoy? What do I like? What do I love about me? Those kinds of things. Continuing our building, we're going to nurture a positive view of yourself. Don't let that voice continually speak negative things to you, whatever that voice is. And wherever that came from, find out where it came from so that you can be like, no, that's not true about me. Because 10 people that I know have said that I'm this good thing and that good thing, and I'm a good friend, and I'm good at this and I'm good at that. Nurture those positive views of yourself. Don't listen to that negative voice that wants to speak negatively about you. Keep things in perspective. We're not going to attain these enormous goals, right? We don't run a marathon the next day. Pace yourself, little steps, baby steps, steps that you know you can be successful at, and move forward in that way. Keep things in perspective. Maintain a hopeful outlook. That glass is half full, it's not half empty. Try to change the way you think. If one of our coworkers, she said she would say switch. That's what it was. She was having a season of a challenging time, and negative thoughts would come in. Actually, she had battled with cancer, and those negative, fearful thoughts would come in, and she would tell her brain, switch, don't go there. So she worked on that, and eventually she's past it. She's doing great. Physical exercise, how many times can we say this? We know we need to have physical exercise. We know our bodies are made to move, and we need to get them moving. Helping others can help us. When you offer support and connection and help for someone else, that fills something inside of us too. So that also helps build our resilience. And of course, as I have said throughout this presentation, take care of yourself. Self-compassion, self-care, so important. So for our mindset, the switch, we need to focus on what is strong rather than what's wrong. Instead of always trying to fix what's wrong, what is right? That's that self-esteem part. Wait a minute, I'm not going to let those negative voices come in all the time. What is right in me and in my life? Know the difference. I love this one. What you can change and what you do not have an effect on. So what you can control, what you cannot control. I encourage you to make a list. So you list all your concerns, write them all down, everything, whatever pops into your head, write down all your concerns. And then draw a line through everything you can do absolutely nothing about, that it's not within your control. And then see what's left. So you can discard all those concerns that are not in your control and just focus on the things that you can control. So that's a key exercise I think all of us benefit from. And then even from that list, what are the things that I can control in a year or 2 years? Or what are the things I can control today or in a month? We can only change our response to events. We cannot change others. So that's that key about that list. We're not going to change other people. We can only change our responses or events, people, events, any of those things. We can only change us. Can't change other people as much as we'd like to. Don't get me wrong. So recognizing we're in control of ourselves. Remember that orange person? It's about us and how we handle life. So we have a couple of activities that you can try. This is for those quick things. Yes, we have the things that we can work at over time, but these are in the midst of challenges or crisis. What can I do quickly to help myself? So relaxation breathing is so important. If you've ever watched a baby breathe, their little bellies rise and lower. They're just so comfortable, sleeping, their little bellies up and down. They get that deep breath in, right down into their diaphragm. Well, as we age, as life and stresses start to come into play, we start to shallow breathe. We breathe in our chest. Well, we want to get more oxygen into our bodies, down into our diaphragm. So if your belly, when you take a deep breath in, you can put your hand on your belly and feel your belly raise. It's not your lungs that we're looking to raise. We're looking to raise that deep breath down into your belly. And that oxygen goes to your muscles, to your body, and helps things relax. So what we're going to do is breathe in for 4, hold it for 7, and then exhale slowly for 8. So I'll do one of those with you. I'll count, you breathe. I won't be able to breathe and count. So we're going to take a deep breath in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Holding for 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And breathing out for 8, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So important and so helpful. And if you tried that, you probably feel a little bit better already. Shoulders kind of relax a little bit. Jaw might relax a little bit. So you can do that over and over again and focus on just your breathing. Don't focus on any of the chaos that's around you, or just help your mind to become quieted and your body to receive all that oxygen. So relaxation breathing is one quick, simple activity you can do in a challenging crisis kind of a situation. Not necessarily crisis, just challenging. Someone's made you angry. Do a little breathing. Don't respond right away. Do some breathing. And here's another one. If things are kind of chaotic, out of whack, okay, wait, I need to get focused here. You can do this activity by thinking of 5 things you can see right now. So you look around the room. I see a mirror. I see a towel. I see a glass. What are 5 things you can see right now? It helps your brain to just come into a focus rather than being all over the place. And then think of 4 things you can touch or feel right now. I feel my feet on the floor. I feel my bottom on the chair. My elbow on the arm of the chair. I'm holding my hands together. I feel my hands. They're cool and soft. What are those things I can touch or feel? 3 things I can hear. I can hear the hum of my computer. I can hear a bird outside. What are 3 things you can hear? And what are 2 things you can smell? I didn't think about what I could smell. If you're outside, maybe it's the fresh air. I smell my hairspray. What are the 2 things you can smell? And what about 1 thing you can taste? Taste my breakfast? What do you taste? Those mindful grounding, it helps quiet your mind. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It just helps you it puts a little buffer between you and the life's events that are challenging. So those are 2 quick activities that you can do to help be resilient, to help to, again, that buffer, help to wait, let me rebound a little bit. And then, of course, do you have any questions? So that is the final, that's the end of our presentation today. I'm glad that you came. Thank you so much for coming. And now we do have an opportunity for questions if you have any. And if not, remember that when we do leave this webinar today, there is a survey that follows. And we do welcome your feedback so that we can improve what we're doing. Awareness helps us too. We need to be aware so that we can improve things. So I'll just leave, I'm not leaving, but I'll leave it open. The floor is open. If you have any questions, then I can do my best to answer those. And if not, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And hope you have a great, resilient day.